tectonics for a homework in Year 8, and my mum entered it into the Geology Society's Rock Watch competition. I won 3rd prize in the under-16s category. Megan wanted to put the film on Facebook and set up a page called Science Rocks. 1 year later, Science Rocks has become bigger than just a showcase for a film on plate tectonics. Over 40 films have now been seen in more than 115 countries around the world. In South Africa, a national children's education charity uses the films to help teach children who find themselves as head of the household because both of their parents have died. In Washington DC, a group of fun-loving scientists are bringing science to preschoolers by introducing science-themed birthday parties. They use our films to show children that science is great fun. A lot closer to home, we know that our films, especially on digestion and other GCSE topics, have been used to teach SEAM school pupils. This project has opened doors for us. In the last year, we have met and interviewed some of the country's top scientists who are carrying out cutting-edge research. People like our next guest, who is working on hydrogen fuel cells. Please can you welcome from the National Physical Laboratory, Dr. Ed Brightman.
I'll just start by telling you a little bit about myself and how I got into the subject that I'm doing. I studied chemistry at university because I was really interested in it at school. It was my favourite subject at school, basically, and I'm sure the fact that you're all here means that a lot of you are interested in science, so that's a great start. And I'd strongly recommend chemistry as a subject that covers all the bases of a bit of physics, a good bit of maths, and you can get into biological sciences as well from it if you're not sure which area of science you want to get into. Then I didn't really know what to do. I kind of thought I wanted to do something good for the planet, and I knew that although oil and gas is a very lucrative career pathway, I'm completely the opposite. I want to try and get away from carbon emissions as much as possible, so I got into hydrogen. So I now work at the National Physical Laboratory in the hydrogen fuel cell lab, and I'm going to tell you a bit about the work that I do and about fuel cells, just to explain what that means, and so that you'll have an understanding of what I do. So I'm going to start off by demonstrating that hydrogen is a great source of energy. So I'm going to show you just how much energy there is in hydrogen by filling a balloon up with it and setting it on fire. You have to set it on fire, but we're never allowed to do it at work. So I brought along a little cylinder of hydrogen. It's perfectly safe. I'm not going to throw it at you or anything, but I'm not going to let you touch it either, because anyway. So I'm just going to use this to fill up some balloons. Now, we practiced this earlier, and it didn't set off the fire alarms. But just in case there's a fire alarm after doing this, I've been told to advise you don't have to evacuate. And then after it's finished and there's no fire alarm, after that, then any other fire alarm will be evacuated.
And remember, the mayor used to be a fireman.
So I think we need to move forward here.
Closer to the people.
Closer to the people. That should be okay. And you might want to cover your ears if you've got sensitive ears.
Turn it round first.
Okay, you ready? 3, 2, 1. So there's a big bang, a bit of flames, and did you feel heat coming from it? So there's loads of energy in hydrogen, which means it's great, we can use it as a fuel. And the best thing about burning hydrogen is that there's no carbon dioxide given off. The only product of that explosion is water. So in the future, where we want to try and decrease the amount of carbon emissions, we can hope to use hydrogen as a replacement fuel. And you can also use hydrogen in combination with biogas to chemically make artificial fuels. So, one of the best ways of getting the energy out of that hydrogen, rather than just setting fire to it, because that's a bit uncontrolled, is in something called a fuel cell. And I'm going to explain how that works using some equipment and hopefully a volunteer in a minute. But basically, a fuel cell is a bit like a bit like one of these. It's a battery, but you constantly supply it with the chemicals. So inside a normal battery that you're used to, there's a fixed amount of chemicals, and those chemicals react inside, and out of one end come electrons, and they go to the other end, which is positively charged. And a fuel cell is basically the same thing. There's a chemical reaction going on, and on one electrode is positive, and the other electrode is negative. I'll explain a bit more about it in a second. So here I've brought along one of my fuel cells, one of the ones that I use in my lab. It looks like this. You can come and have a look at it at the end if you're interested. It's just a really thin membrane, and this membrane is what separates out hydrogen and the oxygen from the air and supplies to the other side. So this is clamped in between flow plates that guide the gases along the surface, and on one side you feed it with hydrogen, and on the other side you feed it with air. And the membrane doesn't let the gases go across through, but it does let ions go through. So when hydrogen loses electrons, it turns into hydrogen ions, which can go through this membrane. And on the surface here, this black stuff that's on the surface of the membrane, I'll hold it up to the camera so you can see. That is a catalyst that will let this reaction happen. And so you make electrical connections to each side of this, and on one side it's positively charged and on the other side it's negatively charged. And from each of these membranes you get about 1 volt of electricity. And this size and the surface area here is what determines how much current you get. But the way that you get more voltage from fuel cells is you stack these together. The same as you can stack batteries in series, you can increase the voltage. Fuel cells, you can stack hundreds of these together and you get hundreds of volts. And so these are being made by commercial manufacturers. They're being developed right now already, and they're almost ready to sell commercially. They're just, the work that we're doing is trying to help bring the cost down and improve the durability of them so that they're affordable. But they're big enough to power a car, or you can stack lots of them together and use it as a miniature power station. So I'm going to demonstrate that they really do work. I need a volunteer from the audience. Oh, your hand shot up. Why don't you come up? Yeah. Let's have a round of applause. Okay, Lakshmi. I've got a little fuel cell powered car here, and if you would like to hold up the camera just to show people, actually maybe I'll just show people in the camera what this car looks like up close, because you can't really see. This bit here in the middle is a fuel cell, what I've just been talking about, and that's going to power this car. And here there's a balloon, there's a little green balloon that's deflated at the moment, and we're going to fill that up with hydrogen to power the car. Okay, and you're going to generate the hydrogen. So I hope you've got lots of energy, because you can't, I could use that cylinder of hydrogen, but in the real world we can't just dig up hydrogen, we have to make it, and you have to put energy in to make hydrogen. So it's actually a great way of storing energy, and we're hoping to be able to use it as a way of storing renewable energy like wind, which sometimes the wind is generating electricity but we don't need it, and it gets wasted. So we can use hydrogen to store that, and using something called an electrolyzer. And this electrolyzer, you might recognise this part, is actually exactly the same as a fuel cell, but it runs in the opposite direction. So we're doing the reaction in reverse. So you're going to generate some electricity, and you're going to produce some hydrogen using this amazing electrolyzer. So this is your electricity generator. If you turn it clockwise, not just yet, plug it in. Okay, now let's go to the camera so you can see. And start turning, you need to turn quite fast. So the light is flashing. You should start to see some bubbles. Okay, see the bubbles coming up here? Those are bubbles of oxygen, which are being generated on this side of the cell. And on this side, it's generating hydrogen. You can see the bubbles coming along the tube. Keep going. Okay, you can see the bubbles coming along. So we're going to now stop for a moment. We're going to fill this balloon up. If you're feeling tired, then let me know. We can get someone else to go. But we need to connect up our little fueling hose. And now go. We hold up the camera so you can see it well. So that balloon is now starting to fill up with hydrogen. So that's probably enough. That's probably enough. Okay, great. That's a round of applause. Actually, Lakshmi, come back. Sorry. As a reward, you get to drive the car, so hopefully when we turn it on, I'll put it down on the floor, and those buttons, one goes forwards and one goes backwards. And hopefully this will work. You might have to stand quite close to it. Yeah. There we go. So that's how a fuel cell works, and that's the sort of idea that, of the hydrogen economy that is being developed in order to move away from polluting fossil fuels and try and move towards renewable fuels like hydrogen and renewable artificial liquid fuels. And the work that I do is really helping to make this a reality by understanding how to make these work better. So, thanks very much.